All right, guys. So today we're going to talk about the West and how the West inspired material and cultural progress in America. It also inspired the forceful domination of Native Americans by white people. And the frontier was no longer this unexplored vast wilderness and grasslands. There were now people starting to move into that land. By the time the next 2 days are over, we should be able to accurately answer the question, how did the West develop American culture and American identity? So the first group we're going to take a look at today is farmers. Farmers had to deal with a very important access to a very important resource in water. And the problem out west was that there wasn't a lot of irrigated territory. The Mormons, though, had pioneered irrigation techniques in the 1840s when they fled religious persecution in the East. And by 1890, because of the Mormons, Utah was the most irrigated, I guess, not the most irrigated state, but the pioneer of irrigation techniques, kind of like the Silicon Valley of irrigation. California, though, was the most irrigated state. To deal with water, the federal government got involved because they owned most of the land out west, and they passed the Newlands Reclamation Act in 1902. Basically, that gave the government the rights to control water and settle disputes between water that could be provided to farmers in two different states or ran between two different states. Not all Western states had yet been established, and therefore water rights were kind of murky in certain places. So Francis Newlands came up with this law. He was a Nevada congressman that passed in 1902. The law said this: if a river flowed through more than one state or could potentially provide water to a nearby state, the federal government controlled the rights to that water in that river. It allowed the government also to sell Western public lands to individuals at parcels no less than or equal to 160 acres, and money that they gained from these sales would help finance irrigation projects that could help out farmers. And the results were pretty universally loved. People loved the Newlands Reclamation Act. It gave aid for agricultural development, economic development for farmers. It did, though, cause some huge problems. First off, it controlled usage of water, but did not stress conservation, which is kind of ironic considering the federal government just recently created national park system, but they really could have cared less about water usage and kind of valued more the agricultural side than the environmental side. Now we're going to get into life on the farm. So farmers' jobs were basically to change arid land into arable land, and agriculture became more of big business than an actual kind of just pastime. And between 1870 and 1880, more land was under cultivation in Kansas, Nebraska, and Texas, three states, than the previous 250 years across the entirety of the country. I want you to take a look at this photo and tell me, what do you think the message is of this picture? So that was a real kind of a romanticized version of the West. This is reality. Most pioneers lived in sod-built houses. It was difficult and expensive, very often, to live near any kind of water. The climate was incredibly unpredictable. Rainfall was very inconsistent. You can see there are no forests around, so there's no wood to build houses. So pioneers constructed their houses out of sod bricks. This is basically just sod that they harvested out of the ground that is stacked on top of each other, compressed, and it's a brick style home. The problem with sod houses is that they were very much prone to being lit on fire. If your bricks got too dry and an ember caught, you were kind of done. They could also be washed away. If the rain was heavy enough and long enough, it could eventually melt the sod and you would have no home left. There was also no wooden roof. You can see they have a thatched kind of burlap roof up here, which meant it was leaky. It didn't retain heat very well. And the temperatures were really unpredictable. It could be extremely hot during the day and freezing cold at night. Insects and rats destroyed crops and homes. In fact, one farmer is quoted as saying that the hoppers left nothing but the mortgage, and drought and fire were really harsh realities. Homes used sod, and they burned buffalo dung for heat. It did not emit a smell because buffalo dung is just compressed grass. Social isolation was a huge problem. Oftentimes, your closest neighbors could be miles away, and you had little to no contact with family, friends, or the outside world. And we'll talk more about why that was later in the slideshow. One of the best examples of hardship on the plains is the story of Ed Donnell, who was a young Nebraska homesteader from Missouri. In the fall of 1885, Donnell rejoiced to his mother in a letter, "I like Nebraska first rate. I saw a pretty tough time a part of the time since I've been out here, but I started out to get a home. and I was determined to win or die in the attempt. I've got a good crop of corn, a floor in my house, and got it sealed overhead. Sounds pretty good. He's pretty optimistic. There's lots of other bachelors here, but I'm the only one I know who doesn't have kinfolks living handy. You want to know when I was going to get married? Just as quick as I can get the money ahead to get a cow. So life's a little better. He's kind of lonely. He misses his family. A year and a half later, so this starts in 1885, so 1886, 87, the rats eat my odd stable down. I may sell out this summer. Land is going up so fast. So he's talking about selling his farm. If I sell, I'm going west. Grow up with the country. By fall of 1886, 87, we have been having wet weather for 3 weeks. My health has been so poor this summer, and the wind and sun hurts my head so. I think if I can sell, I will. Move to town for I can get $40 a month working in a grist mill, and I would not be exposed to the weather. There was relief, though, for the loneliness of farm life, and that was the expansion of what was known as rural free delivery, which basically, in 1896, the government expanded the mail service and that Western farmers could now receive letters, newspapers, and catalogs in a roadside mailbox nearly every single day. It also provided them the ability to communicate between friends and family. They could also get mail order catalogs, which became like Sears and Roebuck, which became popular outlets for Westerners who were socially isolated. Customers would report family news or make odd requests, like a Washington man said, "As you advertise everything for sale that a person wants, I thought I would write to you, as I am in need of a wife, and see what you can do for me." Technology also helped agriculture and farmers. The expanded use of machinery and steam-driven machinery really helped farmers. There was new planting and harvesting implements like seeders, combines, mowers, binders, and rotary plows. And in fact, to give you some statistics, this was largely spurred on by the fact that the older men and women had to work during the Civil War, and there was a massive industrial revolution going on in America. Production of wheat jumped from 7.5 acres of wheat if you were harvesting alone by hand to 135 acres by automatic binder. If you were harvesting corn, you could harvest about 15 acres per season. If you were harvesting by machine, it more than almost tripled to 39 acres. If you were harvesting oats, it went from 7 acres by hand to 66 acres by machine, which is a huge jump in production. Dairy production also became really popular, so now people are going to start to raise livestock more, largely because of the centrifugal cream separator, which sped the process of skimming cream from milk, which meant milk production was really popular. And people started to incubate their eggs, and chicken farming became more popular. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope you're having a good day. Continue with the directions that you'll see here. So what you're going to do is you're going to get up and go to the backboard or the whiteboard and erase one of the words that you think does not fit with what your warm-up was.